You're sitting there reading a text that took them 6 hours to send, maybe longer. It says just enough to keep the connection alive, but not enough to make you feel held. Not enough to make you feel chosen. And you stare at your phone, trying to decode it like your peace depends on punctuation. Then they finally call, or show up, or act normal again. And now you're even more confused because part of you is hurt, part of you is relieved, and part of you already hates that you're relieved. And the thoughts start coming fast. Why does this keep happening? Why do I feel crazy for wanting basic care? Why do they pull me close and then disappear? Am I asking for too much? Am I the problem? Here's the truth that changes everything. It is not hard to handle an avoidant because you love too deeply. It is hard because you're trying to get safety from someone who experiences closeness and pressure as the same thing. And you need to hear this. You're not weak for being hurt. You're not failing at love. And this is not proof that you chose the wrong person just because love has started to feel confusing. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what to do when an avoidant hurts you, how to stop making the pain worse without abandoning yourself, and how to respond in a way that protects your dignity, your nervous system, and your future. Let's get into it. Most people think the problem with avoidant partners is that they don't care enough. But the real truth is usually much deeper than that. What looks cold on the outside is often someone whose nervous system has learned that closeness can quickly become overwhelm, expectation, or loss of control. And when that happens, they don't always come toward connection. They back away from it. That's why this dynamic hurts so much. Because you're responding to the pain of distance, and they're responding to the pain of pressure. So the more abandoned you feel, the more you reach. The more you reach, the more trapped they feel. And the more trapped they feel, the more withdrawn they become. That's not compatibility failing. That's an attachment cycle tightening beneath the surface. Most couples never get taught this. They just personalize it. You think, if I mattered more, they would show up differently. They think, if I open up, I'm going to lose myself. And here's what nobody explains. When safety leaves a relationship, love doesn't always disappear. It goes underground. It turns into silence, into mixed signals, into delayed replies, into defensiveness, into one person over-explaining and the other emotionally vanishing in real time. Your partner's nervous system is reading the interaction before their mind can even explain it. So if you try to solve this only with more talking, more explaining, more chasing, most couples accidentally make the cycle stronger. So if you really want to know how to handle an avoidant who hurts you, you have to stop asking only, how do I get them to understand my pain? And start asking, how do I respond to this pattern without betraying myself or feeding the cycle? That's the work. That's the shift. And honestly, that's where real connection starts becoming possible. 1. Stop chasing clarity from someone who has already gone emotionally offline. Most couples make the same mistake here. The moment the avoidant partner withdraws, they try to force clarity right then and there. More texts, more calls, longer explanations. One more conversation to finally get the truth. Most people in relationships think if they can just say it the right way, the other person will suddenly become emotionally available. But here's the deeper truth. When an avoidant hurts you and then shuts down, they usually are not in a state where closeness feels safe. Their nervous system is in protection mode, not reflection, not repair, not intimacy. Protection. And when you go after clarity in that exact moment, what they often hear is not, please help me feel safe. What they hear is, you are failing again, and I need something from you right now that you do not know how to give. That doesn't excuse the hurt. It explains the pattern. It's like trying to have a heart-to-heart with someone whose emotional smoke detector is screaming. They cannot tell the difference between accountability and threat in that moment. So most couples keep pushing for answers during shutdown, and then wonder why the walls get thicker instead of softer. The disconnecting version sounds like this. You need to tell me right now why you did this. I'm not doing this again. Stop avoiding me. The connecting version sounds like this. I'm hurt, and I'm not going to pretend I'm not. But I can see you're shut down right now, so I'm going to step back, and we can talk when we both have more presence. That changes the whole emotional tone. Because now your energy says, I see what's happening. I'm not chasing you, and I'm not abandoning myself either. This isn't silence as punishment. It isn't playing hard to get. It isn't emotional games. It's self-respect with regulation. And when you do that, the panic in the room starts to settle, and the space between you stops feeling like a battlefield and starts feeling like a boundary. 2. Name the wound without turning it into an attack. Here's the part no one talks about. Most couples think honesty means saying exactly how angry they are in the exact moment they feel it. So the language becomes sharp, loaded, absolute. You never care. You always disappear. You make me feel insane. And yes, the pain is real. But most people in relationships do not realize that criticism lands on an avoidant nervous system like proof that closeness is dangerous. Not because they're innocent, because they're defended. And here's what changes everything. If you want repair, you have to learn the difference between accusation and revelation. Accusation makes the other person brace. Revelation makes the truth visible. One creates more walls. The other gives the conversation a chance to stay real. What the avoidant often hears beneath harsh language is, "You are too much of a disappointment to be close to." And then something in them shuts the door. You see withdrawal and think, wow, they really don't care. But internally, it can sound more like, I knew I'd mess this up. I don't know how to do this without getting crushed. So, instead of attacking character, name impact. The disconnecting version sounds like this. You're impossible. Every time I need you, you disappear. You only care about yourself. The connecting version sounds like this. When you pull away after hurting me, I start to feel alone in the relationship. I need you to understand that it's not just the moment that hurts me. It's the distance after. That lands differently, way differently. Not softer because you're minimizing yourself. Softer because you're telling the truth in a form that can actually be received. This isn't a communication hack. This is what emotionally mature love sounds like when someone has learned to stay honest without becoming destructive. And when you do that, your pain stops sounding like a weapon and starts sounding like something your partner can finally hold. 3. Don't reward distance with more emotional availability than they're offering. This is where it gets really interesting. Most couples never notice how often they overfunction after being hurt. They become more understanding, more flexible, more patient, more available. They explain the avoidance childhood for them. They excuse the coldness. They lower the standard. They tell themselves, they're just scared. If I love them well enough, they'll come around. Bro, That's where so many people lose themselves. Because beneath the surface, what's happening is not compassion. It's self-abandonment dressed up as emotional maturity. And avoidant dynamics thrive in that fog. Not because the avoidant is evil, but because when one person keeps absorbing the impact without changing the pattern, there is no reason for the pattern to become visible. Not more patience, not more empathy, not more over-explaining, but clear consequences that protect connection by protecting you. That's the shift. If they hurt you and then return like nothing happened, most couples go right back into warmth because they're so relieved the distance is over. But your nervous system quietly registers, my pain gets dropped the second they come back. And their nervous system registers, I can re-enter without repair. The disconnecting version sounds like this. They go silent for 3 days after a fight, then text, hey, and you reply, hi babe, I missed you. It's okay. The connecting version sounds like this. They text, hey, and you reply, I'm open to talking, but we're not skipping over what happened. If we're going to reconnect, I need repair too. That is not punishment. That is alignment. And here's the unspoken inner moment you're creating. Their mind starts registering, I don't get closeness without accountability anymore. That's not controlling. That's real. That's what happens when you stop confusing access with intimacy. And when you do that, the relationship stops revolving around their comfort and starts making room for your safety too. 4. Ask for presence, not perfection. And this is the one most couples never figure out. Most people in relationships think the goal is to get the avoidant to suddenly become deeply verbal, consistently vulnerable, and beautifully expressive on command. They want the full emotional speech, the perfect apology, the exact level of connection they've been starving for. But when that becomes the standard, every imperfect attempt starts feeling like failure, and that crushes repair before it even begins. Because the deeper truth is this: avoidant people often do not transform through pressure. They transform through repeated experiences of connection that do not annihilate them. Tiny moments, consistent moments, 30-second moments. Intimacy isn't built in the giant breakthrough conversation. It's built in the quieter moment after pain, when someone chooses to stay in the room emotionally instead of fleeing it. So don't ask for flawless depth. Ask for contact. Ask for presence. Ask for one real step. The disconnecting version sounds like this. If you really cared, you'd know exactly what to say right now. The connecting version sounds like this. I don't need a perfect answer. I need you to stay with me for a minute and not leave me alone in this. That line matters, because suddenly the request becomes human-sized, possible, regulating, and their internal monologue may quietly shift into, she doesn't need me to solve all of this. She just needs me to not disappear. Or, he's not demanding perfection from me right now. He's asking me to stay. That's huge. This isn't lowering the bar. It's learning where growth actually starts. Most couples ask for the final stage of intimacy from someone who hasn't even learned how to tolerate the beginning of it yet. And when you do that, closeness stops feeling like a performance either of you has to nail and starts feeling like something you can actually build together. 5. Separate their pattern from your worth. Here's the part that hits hardest. Most couples live inside avoidant pain for so long that they start making meaning out of it. If they loved me enough, they wouldn't pull away. If I were easier to love, they wouldn't shut down. If I mattered, I wouldn't always be the one left carrying the emotional weight. Most people in relationships don't just feel hurt by the pattern. They let the pattern rewrite their identity. That is where the damage deepens. Because once you confuse someone else's attachment strategy with your value, you stop responding to what's happening and start reacting from old wounds. Now, it's not just this moment. It's every moment you've ever felt unwanted. Every moment you've ever felt too much. Every unspoken longing rises to the surface at once. And your body believes all of it. But here's what nobody explains. An avoidance withdrawal is often about regulation, not worth. Again, that does not make it harmless. It makes it interpretable. And interpretation matters, because the story you tell yourself in painful moments determines whether you reach for dignity or desperation. The disconnecting version sounds like this. They pulled away again. Of course. I'm never enough for anyone. The connecting version sounds like this. They pulled away, and that hurts. But their withdrawal is a pattern. It is not a final verdict on my lovability. Say that again if you need to. Really. Because this is not just a mindset trick. This is nervous system repair. This is what it looks like when you stop handing your identity to someone else's unhealed patterns. And the quote inside your mind starts changing from, "I have to earn steadiness," to, "I deserve connection that doesn't make me disappear." That's the shift that turns pain from something that defines you into something you can finally respond to with clarity. 6. Set boundaries that reveal the truth of the relationship. And here's what changes everything. Most couples treat boundaries like threats, like ultimatums, like dramatic last resorts. But real boundaries are not explosions. They are revelations. They reveal whether the relationship has enough safety, enough care, and enough emotional availability to hold both people honestly. Not controlling them, not fixing them, not managing every reaction, but making your limits visible so the relationship itself can become real. That's what boundaries do. When you say, "I can't keep doing this pattern," most people think the goal is to force change. It's not. The goal is truth. Can this person meet reality with you, or only comfort? Can they stay connected when there are expectations? Can they participate in repair, or only re-enter once the tension is gone? That's why boundaries matter so much with avoidant partners. Without them, the cycle can keep drifting forever. With them, what's been unspoken comes into the light. The disconnecting version sounds like this. If you do this again, we're done. I swear I mean it this time. The connecting version sounds like this. I care about you, but I can't stay in a relationship where hurt gets ignored and distance becomes the answer every time. If this keeps happening without repair, I'm going to have to step back. Feel the difference. One is a threat thrown from activation. The other is a boundary spoken from grounded self-respect. And internally, something in them may register, this is serious. Not because they're loud, because they're clear. That's different. That lands. This isn't a trick for avoiding conflict. This is what it looks like when someone has learned to love without leaving themselves behind. And when you do that, the relationship stops floating in ambiguity and starts revealing whether it can actually become a refuge instead of a cycle. 7. Be willing to let their response teach you what love here actually is. This is the hardest one. And honestly, it's the real one. Most couples stay trapped because they keep falling in love with potential, effort in flashes, and the memory of connection, instead of the actual pattern being lived. They keep saying, "But when it's good, it's so good." And yes, that may be true. But most people in relationships do not heal by being occasionally cherished. They heal by being consistently safe. That's the standard. Because handling an avoidant who hurts you is not ultimately about becoming so wise, so calm, and so emotionally fluent that you can finally make the cycle disappear alone. It's about seeing whether your clarity creates movement on both sides, whether your truth is met, whether your boundaries are respected, whether repair becomes real. Love is not proved by longing. It's proved by participation. So after you stop chasing, start naming, hold the line, ask for presence, and separate their pattern from your worth. Then you watch. You do not fantasize. You do not fill in the blanks. You watch. Do they become more honest, more present, more willing to repair? Or do they keep choosing distance every time intimacy becomes real? The disconnecting version sounds like this. They're trying in their own way, I think. Maybe I just need to be more patient. The connecting version sounds like this. I've been clear about what hurts me and what I need. Now I'm going to let their response show me what this relationship truly has the capacity to hold. That is adult love. Painful sometimes, but real. And here's the internal shift that matters most. I'm not here to beg for connection anymore. I'm here to see if connection is actually being built with me. That one sentence can save you years. And when you do that, your partner stops being a puzzle you have to solve and becomes a truth you are finally brave enough to face. So if this video spoke to you, here's what I want you to remember. This is not about becoming colder. It's not about detaching to win. And it's not about learning how to outplay someone who has hurt you. It's about becoming the kind of person who can stay soft without collapsing, honest without attacking, and loving without abandoning themselves. That's a different level of relationship work, and you feel it in your whole life. When you internalize this, you stop begging for crumbs and start recognizing patterns. You stop confusing chemistry with safety. You stop making someone else's withdrawal mean something final about your worth. And whether this relationship heals or not, you become someone far more grounded, far more clear, and far more real in love. These aren't tips for handling one difficult partner. They're the beginning of becoming the kind of partner you always needed when you were hurting. And here's the line I want to leave you with. The moment you stop chasing love through someone else's distance is the moment you start becoming someone who can finally receive the real thing.